Hi, everyone. Hope you're status post-lunch, but still surviving. I'll try to make it short and sweet, tell you a little bit about me, Data to Life, and the whole vision and the driving force that has got us until today, and what I foresee for how we're going to impact drug safety. So I call this an enabling landscape. And I call this an enabling landscape because we have two major vectors happening for the past couple of years or decades. In terms of technology and everything being digitized, meeting healthcare, and then the understanding that this growing body of information is something that we can utilize to drive this paradigm shift from the old manual way of doing things and creating evidence, and kind of take us to the next gen of evidence-based medicine, that what we started from originally. So a little bit of that enabling landscape in terms of time. There was the CURE Act in 2016, which was kind of the kickoff for real-world data. Does everybody know what real-world data is?
Fake news.
Okay, that might take a place under that definition, but really the whole idea of real-world data is this, is data derived from number of sources that associated with outcomes, and the whole idea is it to be diverse and presenting various patient populations. So these data, and they keep growing, those different data assets out there that are composing what we call real-world data, because they're the fuel to basically generate what we call evidence. And so that's the enabling landscape, regulatory, and not just the US, also European regulatory bodies, and hopefully here in Israel, still driving and striving to drive this data-driven evidence approach. And this is what data and real-world data is to fix or to complement to these traditional way of collecting evidence. And that gap on the right side, that is what we're missing, and that is what we're also looking for when we're collecting real-world evidence and data from diverse amount of patients, from other sources that are not included in the clinical trials, in that old way of doing things. And that is very important to drive all those insights of what is happening after my product, if I'm a pharma company, what's happening with my product after it's been launched, as well as what happens to other group or bigger group of population now being exposed or going through that same journey as I am if I'm a Crohn patient or whatever disease I need to manage in my life. So Data to Life, the company I founded, and my colleague, Dr. Gavrielov, showed one use case of what we do with this data-driven approach, is a company that was born out of understanding that this paradigm that we're going through today of data-driven approach needs to be different from what we used to do. So we have now data and we have technology, but we're doing somewhat similar to what we used to in terms of creating evidence. And in our view, my and my partner's view, what was missing is that patient voice, side by side the traditional stakeholders that generates the data. And that is one of the things that we're trying to do by implementing a more holistic data-driven approach. So taking the traditional way of doing things adding these current and growing body of information, electronic medical records, other clinical records, claims, and so on, as well as the new data assets, whether it's wearables, whether it's social networks and patient communities online that keeps growing and thriving, mobile health, and the other new data assets like genomics and additional IoT data sources out there, to put them all together to create that multidimensional view. And that's how we perceive it. And these are the current data assets that our platform, our 5-year-old platform, been digesting and working with and analyzing and cross-referencing for the past couple of years. One of the applications you saw is for signal detection, how we're able to use those multiple data assets, compare them like an intelligence agency, and look for patterns in the data. And once you have a red flag, to compare it, to cross-validate it, and investigate it further, and only then drive your action. So these are kind of the key elements that we're looking for when we're trying to practice holistic real-world data and real-world evidence. Let's dive into actual details, a real product and a visual aid to help you see how we used it for safety purposes. So in this case, we have a system that basically digests, and well, here you can see it digested 2 data assets, the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System in orange, and the patient spontaneous reports in blue from patient communities online. And that tool that can basically digest or plug in additional data assets, whether it's your internal safety database or the WHO, other regulatory agency data, and compare it and analyze it in the same manner, is a tool that enables you to flag really early on safety signals. You can then cross-validate them. Is it really happening in the clinical data, but also being reported by patient? Is it really happening in my database as well? Look at those discrepancies or commonalities. And then at the same place, the same tool to actually investigate and drill down to the case level and do kind of a complete analysis of your potential signal. This is a very straightforward way of just utilizing this data and technology to compare the label, the full prescribing information, and how it's been resonated through those different data assets. In this case, the dark orange represent electronic medical records that we analyze and see net new diagnosis appearing in the data after a patient being prescribed with that specific product. The light orange is the safety adverse event reporting system, and the blue represents the patient and how they report using our NLP classifiers, so really using the machine learning to funnel down only those relevant reports of first degree, meaning I took or my mother is taking, and the name of the drug or the product, and a causal type of textual pattern that indicates that this is a potential adverse event. The ability to look at the good old MEDRA, Medical Dictionary for Regulatory Activity, so kind of to view the footprint of that product, to stratify and segment the data by the various population at risk, and time view, so time series view. So we talked about there is that challenge of really doing real-world data collection and then using technology to generate evidence. I'm not dismissing those. These are quite big challenge to handle in a non-techie environment, or if it's not part of your company's or organization DNA, it's not an easy task to bear. But as you can see there, part of the panels here are actually industry players who took upon themselves this dirty, not easy work to harness technology to serve these purposes. This is really another quick example of monoclonal antibody and the red flag being flagged by the FDA early last year, and how we're able to view that really quickly through our system and see that this is really happening in all three sources, so think intelligence agency. See that over time, and these reports are being steady before, since the drug is out in the market and before the FDA flagged it out. It's statistically significant, so we're using signal detection tools and other prediction basic tools to show really early on that a safety alert and signal is there. We're able to see where the reports are coming from, so investigating them. Here's the list of the report that generated that signal. And here is an interesting piece I came across just by playing with the data, seeing that specifically ARDS is under that higher category of potential side effect, and seeing that actually young adults, looking at these two cases that I were able to pull out and put in one screen, that are basically reporting ARDS after being using and exposed to that product. But that's really just a taste. What I really want you to take away is that real-world data is powerful, it's valuable, it's complementary, and the whole idea is to use technology to make our lives easier, to make all this data streaming at our hands very fast, very automatically, for the smart people in this room to actually sit down and do what they're really supposed to do, which is investigate and drive the right decision after collecting all this information. And that's it. Thank you.